On today's episode of the Football Fellowship podcast, we have got the dreaded task of reviewing our pre-season Premier League predictions for the 2023-24 season. We created a combined Premier League table of where we thought every team was going to finish. There were a few spot on, a few a long way out, and we're going to be seeing exactly how we did today. It was our first ever video on the channel, so if you'd like to go back and have a look, check it out below. As always, on the Football Fellowship podcast, more rounds of the quiz, and it is the final round of the quiz with a bumper football Tenable. 6 rounds for you between myself and my co-host Mev to see who can get that all-important Football Fellowship quiz crown.
Welcome back, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us. And I'll be honest, Toby, this feels like very much a full circle moment reacting to our preseason predictions, which was the first ever video we put out on the channel. And I'll be honest, I think it's held up pretty well. I think, we were talking some pretty good sense even all the way back then. And there were a couple of predictions which were bang on and I'm very happy about. And a couple which we'll get into, shall we say. But yeah, when we started, I first asked you, right, Toby, is there anyone that you feel very strongly about? And this was tough to do because we had to think about what had happened the season prior, which was the 22-23 season, what had happened in the transfer window, and then what was the next season going to look like. So doing it today, we've had to look back over 2 seasons and think, okay, what were we thinking back then? And you felt very strongly that Fulham weren't going to have as good a season as they did in the 22-23 season when they finished 10th. Why was that?
Yeah, I think looking back at the time in that season, there was a lot of sort of question marks over Fulham. Mitrovic, I think at the time, he hadn't quite left yet. I think he was on his way out to the Saudi League, or he had said he didn't want to play for Fulham anymore. There were big rumours of Marco Silva potentially going to the Saudi League as well. And I think the main point that we were looking at in that prediction was their XG overperformance in the 2022-23 season, and I think we believed that they were a few places higher than they should be, and that without Mitrovic putting that ball in the back of the net on those difficult chances, those low XG chances, that maybe they'd be dropping down the table. And our first ever prediction, our first ever bold, potentially dodgy shout and opinion on the channel was that we believed Fulham were going to finish in 15th place.
Yeah, obviously they did a little bit better than that. They finished in 13th, which is 2 places better than we thought they would, but 3 places worse than they did the season prior. And I think, for the first one, I think it's pretty good. There's this very difficult bracket in between, I guess, probably 15th and 10th, where I think any of those teams could really finish in any of those places. And I think Fulham was one where they could have potentially been a bit higher, they potentially could have been a bit lower as well. But I remember thinking at the time that Carlos Vinicius, he was one that, potentially had overperformed his XG at the back end of last season, did really well. And if Fulham were going to do well, they really needed him. Obviously, that didn't quite work out. 2 goals and 1 assist for Fulham. It wasn't great. And he obviously got shipped off to Galatasaray on loan. Obviously, though, no one could have predicted the explosion of Rodrigo Muniz in the second half of the season. Otherwise, Fulham could have potentially been in a little bit more trouble.
Yeah, what a second half of the season for Rodrigo Muniz. Just absolutely bagging goals. I think he had 9 and 9 at one point. Really, really kept Fulham on a good run of form. I think overall the season for Fulham has been decent. I think it's been consistent compared to last year. And I think quite a few other people also thought Fulham were going to drop off a lot more than they did. And they've done really well to keep Marco Silva, to keep a fairly decent squad. A lot of players, I think, have had some very good seasons for Fulham. Looking at Anthony Robinson in particular, I think has been really, really good. Iwobi coming in, I think, has been really good at times as well. And yeah, a solid season for Fulham. And maybe we were a little bit harsh on them to put them down in 15th.
Perhaps a little, but I don't think it's the end of the world. And one thing which I've thought about a lot this year, and actually said it on last week's podcast, is for teams who are on the bottom half of the Premier League table, it's very important that you keep your key players. And I think you highlighted it and I backed you on it in saying Fulham absolutely needed to keep João Palhinha. They did. He's had a fantastic season for them yet again. It's been shown when he's absent, they really struggle in that midfield area. And I think for a lot of these teams, I think Fulham going forward, Palhinha, Anthony Robinson, they're losing Tosin Adarabioyo, which is going to be a bit of a blow. They definitely need to reinforce at centre-back. But keeping a hold of your key players is absolutely crucial. And at the end of the day, I think this is one we're pretty happy with it. I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna lose any sleep over it.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're going to have to change the tone from pretty happy to I think pretty disappointed. I'd say this next team coming up is one of our worst shouts. And for our predicted table, we had Burnley up next, and we had them in 14th place. What do you make of that on reflection, Mev?
One word. Ouch. That one does hurt. That was one of our worst ones. Okay, let's just bite the bullet. So I think after Vincent Kompany came in, there's a lot of question marks about his time at Anderlecht. Was he good enough? Is he a coach that can really help a side like Burnley get promoted back to the Premier League? And we thought, not sure, but we're gonna have to wait and see. He did amazingly well. They got 100+ points in the Championship. He played really good, exciting attacking football, and they got promoted, and everything seemed really rosy. I remember saying that they made some really good signings, and the likes of Bayer and O'Shea, and I do still think they were good signings for Burnley. They've improved the quality of the side. However, I don't necessarily think they were Premier League quality. Obviously, finishing in 19th place, we predicted them to be 14th. And I remember asking you one crucial question. Do you think they'll have a better season than Fulham? And you said, "Ooh, I don't know." And then you said, "Yeah, probably." And looking back on it, it's not great, is it?
Yeah, a bit of a shocker, that one, a bit of a shocker. But I think a lot of people thought the same. They play really nice attacking football, Burnley. We did mention that City 5-0 loss that they had whilst they were in the Championship. I remember you saying they played really well, but they also lost 5-0. And maybe we should have looked less about how they were playing and the style of play that they had, and more about the result in that game. I think spoke a lot, and we've seen a lot of games from Burnley like that this season where they have played well, but they are conceded far too many goals. So yeah, maybe should have been a bit more realistic, but also just to try and help us out a little bit, there is always seem to be one team when they get promoted that seems to have a pretty solid season. I remember when Sheffield United came up, and I can't remember if they did finish in the top half. They were very close if they didn't, where they came straight up, finish in the top half, because a lot of teams didn't exactly know how they played, and they played sort of pretty good progressive football as well. They had the underlapping centre backs at one point throughout their season where they had that fantastic first season in the Prem. So we do normally see it happen. In this case, it was all three promoted teams who went down in the end, and Burnley were one of them, which put us 5 places off, really.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, you're a bit more pessimistic on Burnley than I was. I was the one who I think persuaded you to go a little bit higher. And I think one player who, if Burnley were able to keep, which didn't quite happen, was Nathan Teller. I think he went off to Bayer Leverkusen from here, Southampton, and he didn't get loaned back or sold to Burnley permanently. And I think it's one we've all know the season that Leverkusen have had, winning the Bundesliga, winning the Cup trophy in Germany as well. He's only been a bit of a squad player, but he absolutely would have been the starter for Burnley. Someone who I actually completely forgot they had in the Championship until I rewatched the video we did. And I thought to myself, oh my God, they needed someone exactly like that. But I remember asking you about Trafford, because you said that he was a very good, exciting goalkeeper, had a fantastic under-21 Euros with England, and he absolutely did. But I did say, he's a bit like Gavin Bazunu for me, and I can't believe, how well the prediction came off. And I said that he seems like a very talented young player, but the Premier League, from being loaned to a League One side, seems like a bit of a jump. He'd probably be better off having a season in the Championship before coming up to the Premier League. And it's one where I don't think he cost Burnley the season, Trafford, but he definitely wasn't as good as I think we were hoping for him to be.
Yeah, that's a really good point on James Trafford. And it's really difficult with young goalkeepers, because goalkeeping is that one rare position where once you sort of are over 30, you're much better. And it is a big risk playing young goalies, especially throwing them straight in the deep end at the Prem in your first promoted season in the Premier League under Vincent Kompany. He is very good with his feet. He is going to be a fantastic keeper, but as we saw towards the end of the season, Muric came back into the side, and I think showed that when you are a team struggling down there, the most important asset to have of your goalkeeper is the shot stopping, something where Muric absolutely excelled towards the end of the season, having games where he was getting 10 ratings on SofaScore multiple times, 8, 9, 10 saves in games, and really picking up a few important points for Burnley towards the end, which ultimately didn't matter too much. But maybe if they had him in from the start of the season, they would have picked up a few more points. But I guess in a way with Trafford as well, maybe if he wasn't playing, they wouldn't have been able to play out of the back as well as they could and start a few of their impressive attacks, which we saw through the season, even if they didn't come quite often enough.
Yeah, that's true. And just one last thing about Burnley, because I do think that they'll do all right in the Championship next year. They've got a very young squad. There's potential for them to come straight back up, and I think they'll be one of the favourites of the three relegated sides to do so. However, it is a bit off topic, but I can't believe it if I'm being honest. Vincent Kompany to Bayern Munich. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't think anyone expected to see this news, it to come out as it did, and it to seem to progress as quickly as it did. I understood maybe Kompany being on the list for Bayern as someone to watch out for, but I can't believe the jump from being relegated with Burnley to being manager of Bayern Munich, one of the biggest clubs in the world, is absolutely crazy. And what do I think of Kompany as a manager? I'm not too sure. I understand the attraction of him being a young manager who plays exciting football, who plays high-risk football, and who plays football that suits a big club. And he could certainly have some good success with Bayern. I just think it is a massive risk, especially with the position that Bayern seem to hold themselves in at the moment. Obviously, not winning the Bundesliga this season after 10 years on the trot is a massive change. And I think Bayern Munich jumping on that trend of the moment of getting a young manager and getting them in early, maybe not the right time for Bayern and maybe not the right suit. But yeah, it's a really strange one because I don't want to say too much because I could also see Kompany going there and bringing a really, really nice style of attacking play that could really help Bayern Munich get back into winning positions in the league. So I'm not sure. I'm not sold, but I'm not completely against it either. So not too sure. What do you reckon, mate?
I think the key word you said there was potential. Bayern Munich are definitely not getting, the finished article. They're getting a manager who they think will be able to learn on the job and be able to develop the side and ultimately win them back the Bundesliga, which they lost in quite embarrassing fashion for considering the fact that it is Bayern Munich. And I think, yes, he could go there and do a good job, but I don't think his CV warrants it. And I think Sean Dyche got Burnley to Europe and Vincent Kompany got Burnley relegated. So based on the CV, would you rather take Sean Dyche? Maybe there's a bit of Vincent Kompany where he played as a player, the type of career he did have, being as successful as he did. Maybe that helps out, but I just don't think it's a very smart move for Bayern Munich. But when you've already had 7 managers reject you and now you're on your 8th option, it's not a bad 8th option, but I think Kompany absolutely had to take it. For Burnley, I think it's quite unfortunate because they're going to lose a manager who they probably would have liked to have kept for another season to try and get them back in the Premier League. But then we should probably move on then, because I asked you to put your... what did I ask you to do? We went to the relegation sides because I asked you to put your money where your mouth is, tell me who's going to get relegated. And with absolute certainty, you said Luton Town.
Yeah, I reckon these next 2 teams we do as a little double package because I think we were both pretty confident that they were going to be going down. Ultimately, we decided on Luton Town being in 20th position and Sheffield United being in 19th. So Sheffield United just the one place out who did finish rock bottom and had, without being too harsh, one of the worst seasons potentially in Premier League history. Most goals conceded and not too far off the points record. And Luton Town being 2 positions lower than they were. And they certainly put up a lot more of a fight than I personally was thinking. I thought they were going to be fairly solid, but I didn't think their squad quite had the quality. And on reflection, maybe that squad doesn't have the quality. But the way that they played, the heart that they played, the way they play as a team meant that they really, really made up for where they are lacking in terms of financial backing compared to a lot of other clubs. And they had a really, really good season for them. And I think they really showed the league what they were all about. So, yeah, on reflection, I definitely shouldn't have been, or I shouldn't have been pushing to put them bottom of the table. And you shouldn't have let me, Mev.
Yeah, that's true. But I also remember thinking I wasn't too fussed because I thought that both Sheffield United and Luton Town would get relegated. So I wasn't too bothered where we put them because I knew we'd probably maybe 1 or 2 off at the very worst. I just think that the reason why I didn't have Luton right at the bottom was because I did think that heart and desire and everything against them, that narrative would have contributed something. But I could never have imagined Sheffield United being as bad as they were. I mean, I mean, I highlighted Sander Berg as being an important player and one to watch for Sheffield United, and then he went to their relegation rivals, who also got relegated with them. But I remember I just couldn't believe it at the time when I heard the news after we made the predictions, just thinking, okay, well now they've got no chance, do they? But selling them and die, we just outwardly just call Paul Heckingbottom a poor manager, and I don't think he's a poor manager, but I don't think he's a manager right for the caliber of the level of the Premier League. I think they were so undercooked, they're well out of their depth, and the fact that Luton Town put up more of a fight, I think that itself is embarrassing enough.
Yeah, especially some of the results that we saw this season from Sheffield United, sort of 6-0, 8-0, 4 or 5-0 at home, a lot of those games as well. It must have been a very, very difficult season for the fans to have to go and watch that at times as well. Hopefully, I think next season in the Championship though, they still do have a decent amount of quality in that squad, and I definitely think they're going to be floating around the playoffs, if not even higher, if they can get that spirit, I think, back in the team, which is needed. And in terms of Luton, I think exactly the same as well, if not better. If Luton can really bounce back, keep riding that high of this season, then they'll definitely be looking to bounce straight back up as well, especially with Rob Edwards as manager. I think he's been absolutely fantastic.
Oh, I tell you what, mate, I'm not sure Sheffield United are necessarily ready to come straight back up. I remember saying it in the prediction video that I think they're over relying on players like of Norwood and Robinson. I mean, players that got them relegated a couple of seasons ago with Chris Wilder. So the fact that they're still here, they've only gotten older, they're more experienced, but in terms of Premier League, you need the quality, and they don't have that. So I think Sheffield United need a bit of a rebuild, a restructure. They've got a very promising youth team apparently, so maybe introducing more of those. I think Arblaster has done the right for the few games he's coming towards the end of the season. I think they've got some good looking young forwards up top in Asula, but I think they need a bit more of a rebuild. I'll be more confident about Luton Town, I'd say, despite the fact that they're probably going to lose the likes of Barkley, Townsend. I wouldn't be surprised if Adebayo and Alfie Doughty also went to Premier League teams. I think they have a better chance because I think there's just more quality. And I think the likes of Morris, I don't think he's going anywhere. I don't think any Premier League side's going to pick him up. I think he's perfect for Luton as where they are. And I think that's the case for a lot of these sides. So, yeah, I'm not sure about Sheffield United, but Luton I can definitely see coming straight back up.
Yeah, I think it's more as well a point of the Championship next season. It seems to be a really sort of mixed bag of not a mixed bag, the complete opposite of what I'm trying to say. It seems to be a lot of the teams are of quite similar quality, I feel, in the Championship. I think besides Leeds, who obviously very recently just lost the playoff final, are the only standout team for me in that I would say, okay, I definitely think they're going to be finishing first, second, third, fourth. Whereas a lot of other teams, I think looking at the two other teams who are in the playoffs this year, Norwich and West Brom, I think looked decent. Norwich, I don't think particularly looked great, especially for a playoff side. And I think there's going to be a lot of competition for the playoffs next season. I think it could be sort of 5-6 games left of the season, and any team down to sort of 12th in the league could be trying to sneak into the playoffs. I really do think next season battling for the playoffs is going to be a really exciting one in the Championship, because there's just feels like there's a lot of teams that are good but not too good for the Championship, and I think it's going to be a really exciting season. So Sheffield United could, I think, get themselves into that battle. And Luton, yeah, like you said, Luton do look strong, and I think they'll be up there.
Yeah, and there's some sides who you haven't even mentioned, the likes of Hull City. I mean, they sacked their manager, Liam Rossinier, and I just couldn't believe that at the time. But they only just missed out, and like so many more as well. So it is, you can never predict it if you're completely honest. I mean, if you can't predict who's going to go 1, 2, and 3, then you know what, you should definitely be a betting man, because I couldn't predict it. But speaking of sides who we thought could go down, we had a bit of a disagreement about who we thought was going to be in 18th place. It turned out to be Luton Town and all three newly promoted sides who ended up going down. You thought it was going to be Nottingham Forest, and I thought it was going to be Wolverhampton Wanderers. I think I definitely have to take more of an L on that one than you do. I think you were a bit more spot on. But Nottingham Forest was start off with, because they still at the time had Brennan Johnson. They hadn't sold him. So, and it did look like they could be okay, but as the season unfolded, it turned out that they were in and around there at the end.
Yeah, ultimately we predicted Forest to be 17th somehow, so we got it spot on in the end, which was great. We made a few points, I think, about their forward line. We did highlight Alanga, Morgan Gibbs-White, and Awani, and Brennan Johnson, as you said. And 2 out of 4 of those, I think, had decent seasons. Looking at Elanga and Gibbs-White, Awani was hit by injury and also by Chris Wood's amazing return to form at the second half of the season. And then obviously Brennan Johnson moving on to Spurs, as you've said. So we were able to sort of see some of the quality shining in that squad. I just think it was a lot of talk again about how many signings they've made, how these players are going to sort of be integrated into the squad, and how good are a lot of these signings that they're bringing in? Are they better than what they're replacing? And I think we just weren't too sure on that. But with some of that attacking quality and some of the players in that squad, I think we did end up agreeing that they were going to stay up, even if it was just. And ultimately, it was our first one that we got spot on, 0 places out. So a good result in the end.
Yeah, I think Nottingham Forest had all the classic signs of a team who's going to go down, a bit of uncertainty about how much money they could spend, selling some of their key players, buying replacements who were okay but not as good, a lot of average players. I mean, the amount of goalkeepers they started off with Horvath in goal, then they had Matt Turner, then they had Lacademos, and then they ended up finally with Sells. But then also in centre-back, we were talking about Felipe and Worrell starting at centre-back, and they ended up the season with Bolly and Murillo. So I think it is one where they've not had a great season. They've been very up and down, especially when you think about point deductions as well, sacking Steve Cooper, bringing in Nuno Espirito Santos, everything around with the owner, refereeing, and it's been honestly a mess. And I think getting relegated would have been the cherry on the cake. It wouldn't have been the cake itself. Does go to show what an up and down season they've had. And to be honest, I'm glad that you convinced me that they probably could have stayed up, but I think it might have been more me very confidently saying Wolves were going to go down, which absolutely did not happen.
Yes, ultimately we went for Wolves in 18th place, 4 positions out from where they finished, and I don't think the position, like the prediction of being 4 places out, is the worst. I think it's maybe about our talk of sort of where the club was at the time. It seemed we didn't know what was going to happen. Lopetegui was still manager when we made our predictions. There was a lot of question marks over the club itself, how it was being run, what the players felt like. And since they brought in Gary O'Neill, and it just seemed like a complete flip, he has done a really, really fantastic job to get the spirit back into that side. And at one point in the season, we've talked about Wolves so much this season, how much we've enjoyed watching them, how much we've really enjoyed watching them go forward. Mateus Cunha, Hwang, Pedro Neto, Ait Nuri, some players who have had some really, really exciting seasons. And yeah, they ultimately, I think, could have even finished a lot higher than the 14th position they did, and our prediction would have been far, far out. So yeah, for me, being 4 positions out, I think on reflection of the season is actually not a bad result, because I think it could have been a lot worse if Wolves had a fully fit squad and were able to play as well as they did in that sort of middle section of the season. If they played like that all season, they would be quite comfortably top half, I think.
Yeah, but that's the thing for all of these sides, just constant consistency, isn't it? If they can get consistent, then a lot of them would be top table. But I think I remember at the time that the reason why I had them down to get relegated was because they lost Moutinho, Adama Traore, and Raul Jimenez on a free. They sold Ruben Neves to Al Hilal and Nathan Collins to Brentford. What we didn't know was that Mateus Nunes would also be sold to Manchester City, and we were earmarking him as a player who was getting played out on the left, out on the right, and in the wrong positions under Lopetegui. And now that Moutinho and Neves had left, that he's going to be playing in the middle where his preferred position is, and he's going to be really the key for the ball side. Turns out it wasn't even him. It turned out to be Mateus Cunha, who the Wolves were forced to pay the 50 million fee from Atletico Madrid. And he turned out to be an absolute steal because he has looked amazing. And we were earmarking like the Podence and I can't remember his name now. The striker who they had at the beginning of the season, Kalasic. Podence and Kalasic to be the ones to get them the goals. And oh god, I mean, not in terms of just the place, but in terms of the players who was going to help Wolves, we got it so wrong.
Yeah, Wolves, I think, really proved a few people wrong, I think, and Gary O'Neill coming in after what people saw as maybe an unfair sacking from Bournemouth, which obviously we'll be touching on later with under now Iraola. He's come straight in and done a really good job. So yeah, I think Wolves next season, I think they're still definitely one to keep an eye on, and they really could press on if they can keep that squad and they can keep it fit. throw in a little bit more money to improve some squad depth in some positions, and yeah, they'll be comfortably mid-table next season if they can sort of meet things as they did this year.
Absolutely. And when we're talking about the sides in and around relegation, one side that constantly came up was Everton. In the end, we put them in 16th place. And that's actually one place off where they finished. They ended up finishing on 15th place on 40 points, which could have been even better had it not been for 2 separate point deductions totaling 8 points. They would have been in 12th place. So Everton had a great season, and obviously the league table doesn't reflect that. But I think we were always earmarking them to be in and around the relegation race, and whether that because of the point deductions they were. But I think they played some really good football this season. We were saying that what they desperately need to do is make sure that Dominic Calvert-Lewin stays fit. I said at the time, spoiler alert, he's not going to be. It proved me wrong. 32 appearances in the Premier League, 7 goals and 2 assists. But most importantly, he had backup. He had some incoming forwards like Beto and Chumiti who really helped him out, which meant that he didn't necessarily have to play 490 of every single minute of every game, which allowed them to rotate and allowed Everton to be really, really good. But most importantly, it was their defence. And Toby, you especially were saying that if Pickford, if Tarkowski, if Mikalenko, if they've got seasons, Everton will do well.
Yeah, it's definitely something we touched on, that their defence is really their strong point, and bolstered even further this year by Branthwaite cementing his place in that Everton defence. A very, very solid backline, and I think if they get a right back this season, who is maybe a little bit of an upgrade on sort of Ashley Young and Nathan Patterson, that back five is absolutely brilliant. That is what will carry them forward, and I think they will be cracking on next year. Another side to really, really keep an eye on, because at times they have been very, very impressive, Everton, especially Branthwaite, Tarkowski and Pickford. That is such a good sort of partnership between the three of them. The only sort of little things is, like we did mention about Calvert-Lewin, if he stays fit and he can score goals, they'll be okay. He still didn't really score enough goals for me or take his chances as well. Another pretty big underperformance in terms of XG. Luckily, he is that sort of player who doesn't completely rely on goals. His hold-up play and his sort of aerial win percentage is one of the best in the league, and has really helped bring in those players in behind him, like Dwight McNeil, Jack Harrison, Decore playing in that sort of centre-forward role. I think they've all had really, really good seasons going forward, and a lot of that is helped by Calvert-Lewin, even if maybe he's not scoring too many goals. But yeah, in terms of the prediction, the points deduction definitely helped us out, kept us only one place out, and a pretty solid prediction for Everton, especially with what we were saying about their defence as well.
Yeah, and I think you also need to take a little bit more credit as well, because you even said for Decore, he's not the most consistent, but he will pop up with some goals every now and then, and he absolutely did that, especially the first half of the season. He was really on fire, really helping out, especially when Dominic Calvert-Lewin was playing, but not necessarily getting the goals, like you mentioned. And also a special mention to Branthwaite. I know you touched on him already, but I had him down as not sure if he's quite ready yet. He's still young and raw, don't want to put too much pressure on him. My God, I mean, you can put as much pressure on him as you want. He has absolutely excelled in England squads, in England's Euro provisional squad for Euro 2024, and for me, has to be in the 26. And arguably competing with Maguire for the left-hand side. Now there's no Levi Colwill as a left-footed option, so he has absolutely been on leaps and bounds. Man United linked with him for 70-odd million plus. I mean, probably be the third most expensive defender in Premier League history if he does make that move, but I think he's been absolutely fantastic. He deserved all the praise he got this season. And not only that, special shout out to Sean Dyche, who didn't get nominated for Manager of the Year, but considering the circumstances with the point deduction, everything going around the ownership and with the 777 are going to be taking over or not, limited amount of funds, having to sell key players, I think Everton can be absolutely delighted with the season they've had, because to not be in another relegation battle on the very last day, to get it sorted a couple of games before, everyone can take a big deep breath and everything can go into next season very happy.
100%, yeah. A superb season from Dyche. Got the best out of his players as he has done throughout his whole career, and now has the opportunity to hopefully, without any further points deductions, touchwood, can sort of press on. In terms of good manager performances, I think the team up next is one that we had no idea of predicting at the start of the season, with it being a mid-season appointment, was Crystal Palace. We had them in 12th place in our prediction, which I think was okay. 2 places out of their 10th place finish, and a lot of those points coming after Glasner was appointed, and what a turnaround they had.
Mate, absolutely. I don't think anyone could have predicted Crystal Palace getting a top 10 finish. I've even seen some other people saying, well, I don't know. If Glasner gets some good signings, they could finish in the top 10 next year. And I'm like, have you not looked at the table? They have finished in the top 10. They've done absolutely remarkably well. I think a big part of that has been keeping Eze and Elise fit, which I do feel a little bit sorry for Roy Hodgson, because although I think it was time for him to leave, and I think the way he left was probably not the most ideal, and obviously we wish him well. But I think getting Glasner in, who's a European winner in the Europa League with Frankfurt, the fact that he's playing more front-footed attacking football, despite playing three at the back rather than four, I think he done remarkably well. And oh God, I remember saying in the predictions that between the strikers that Crystal Palace have of Mateta, Edouard, and Ayew, they wouldn't get 10 goals between them. And of course, Jean-Philippe Mateta, a man on form, got in 16 goals this season. So that's 6 more on his own. So I definitely got that very, very wrong.
Yeah, I think he ended up getting about 10 goals in 4 games or something absolutely ridiculous when he went on that super streak. Yeah, complete turnaround for Palace. Looked so good under Glasner. The 3-back system seems to suit all of their players so well. They have a really good base starting 11 now, something to build on. I've really enjoyed watching Munoz at right wing back. I think he has been one of the most underrated signings of the season for only, I think it was 8 million euros. He has looked really, really good. And as you've said, Elise and Eze behind Mateta. And to touch on that as well, in the summer, it was Wilfried Zaha who did leave Crystal Palace. And we did say, I think we both said we're not too sure how much he is going to be missed. The season before that, he wasn't as good as he has been. Palace haven't relied on him as much as they've needed to, with players like Elise and Eze stepping up and filling that mantle. And yeah, honestly, until I watched that video back, I completely forgot it was Zaha who left in that summer, because they have not missed him one bit.
Yeah, and I tell you what, I mean, we got some of the players a bit wrong as well. I mean, Nathaniel Klein, we were saying that we're not really sure he's suited out. He's not really sure he's ready to start week in, week out in the Premier League. And he wasn't under Roy Hodgson, but since Glasner's come in, him at right centre-back in that back three system has looked absolutely amazing. And he's actually looked like the perfect right centre-back. He's not necessarily got the height of a centre-back, but when you're playing a back three, you can compensate that for having some excelling in other areas, which is his defending capabilities and his on the ball, which I think is very, very good. And I think he's very well suited. He might very well get upgraded in the summer for a new right centre-back, but he did well. And we were saying Crystal Palace need a new right back. Turns out they just needed a new right wing back in Munoz, who came in January, which was a very astute signing. They started off, we were saying that Lerm and Decore midfield would be doing amazingly well. They did okay. They had a lot of injury issues, and it turned out to be the midfield of Adam Morton and Will Hughes. So we got the right feeling around the club, I think, but it was just the wrong players that we were identifying.
Yeah, and if the table would have ended mid-season, we would have been a decent way off, because I think they were sort of 15th, 16th until Glasner was appointed. So yeah, 2 positions out in the end. They did finish in the top half. We said 12. Could be worse. The next team up that we did predict was Bournemouth. They have appointed Iraola. We talked about that quite a decent amount, and we ultimately decided that we thought they were going to finish 13th, 1 place lower than they did in 12th.
Yeah, and do you know what? I'm very happy with this as well, because a lot of people, especially after the first 10 games, I think they only picked up 3 points, 3 draws, no wins, 7 losses, and a lot of people were getting on the back. And I remember thinking back to our prediction at that moment and saying, well, yes, you can take recent results into account, but if you take yourself out of the moment and isolate yourself and just think, okay, with a cool calm ahead, what did we think was going to happen? And we did say that we thought that they were going to take a little bit of time to adjust to the way that Iraola wants his team to play. However, it is good, front-footed, attacking football, which a lot of teams and fans now want their side to be playing, and it might take a little bit of time to get into it. It did, and thankfully Bournemouth stuck with him, because they ended up doing really, really well. Bournemouth's highest ever points total in the Premier League, and I think this is one where we didn't quite get the position right, but in terms of everything we said, I was actually really happy with this one.
Yeah, I completely agree. One thing that I think I have highlighted from the prediction was that it's the right direction for the club, and we did predict them to be 1 position lower, and I think that's still pretty decent, because with Bournemouth, I think a lot of people weren't too sure. You could certainly have put them lower in the table, and I don't think too many people would have complained. You could see it could have ended up like Company at Burnley, where they play good attacking football, but it's just not right for the team, not right for where that club is at the time in the league, and it could have been a big risk. Ultimately, he has played off superb. Kluivert, Semenyo, Solanke, really, really good, exciting, and really good seasons for all of them as well. And ultimately, I think it's ended up with Areola being in conversation for manager of the season. The way he has got Bournemouth playing, best points total ever, best finish in the league ever, superb season for Bournemouth, and another one of those, I guess, bracketed mid-table sides, as we say, to keep an eye on next year that are going to be pressing on. There seems to be a lot of them now, and it's just making our predictions for next year even tougher.
Honestly, mate, I think like the sides like Bournemouth are what the kind of teams that make it really hard for newly promoted sides, because you typically expect Bournemouth to be in and around the relegation race. If we're being honest, the size of the club, the finances they have compared to other teams, it's not as big. So the fact that Bournemouth, we can now think of Bournemouth as solidly mid-table and shouldn't be in a relegation fight is something that I think that the ownership and team should be very proud of themselves, because they're the ones who did this. They made the hard decision of sacking Gary O'Neill, even though he kept them promoted in the Premier League, despite the fact that they had a turbulent first 3 games with Scott Parker getting thrashed by Liverpool and then getting sacked immediately after because of disagreements about transfer spend. They did spend a little bit in the January of the 22-23 season, but that was in the long-term vision of, okay, we're going to get a more progressive manager, and Uriel has done that. And I think he surprised a lot of people. I think he's surprised us, but not as much as I think other people, and I'm very happy. We did say, though, that Bournemouth wouldn't be any higher. I mean, they finished 12th, but any higher than that because of the fact that they would concede a few, and they did this season. So that's something where you can probably look towards for Bournemouth improving next summer. And the fact that they did have some injuries. I think Max Aaron was unavailable. Milos Kirk is also unavailable for large parts of it. So without your two starting fullbacks, arguably for the majority of the season, that is definitely an area they can improve in.
The team up next was a bit of a funny one. I'm not too sure what I think of this prediction and what we said, to be honest. I'm really intrigued to hear your perspective, Mev. Is Brighton and Hove Albion. We predicted them to finish 9th, which was 2 places higher than they did finish in the end in 11th. And I'm not too sure what to think. It's been a really funny old season for Brighton. They haven't really seemed to play well for much of the season, to be honest. They had a really good, strong start. And since then, to me, they have been really disappointing, I think. Hit by a lot of injuries, conceding far too many goals, not putting away chances, and it's a strange position to be disappointed in Brighton finishing 11th, given the size of the club and where they were 6 or 7 years ago. But I think maybe that's my as I think I said it in the prediction, my Brighton tinted goggles, because I think they're a fantastically well-run club and one that I love to watch. So yeah, in terms of prediction, it's a strange one. What have you made of it?
I think that I am very disappointed in myself, because I was a bit more pessimistic than you were, because in 22-23 they finished 6th, and we were saying that Europa League is going to take a bit of an impact on them. They're going to have a few more injuries, and we expected Brighton to do well in Europe, which is why we think they'll drop off in the league a little bit. I was thinking around 11th. You persuaded me to put them a little bit higher, because they have finished 6th and did remarkably well, but no one could have predicted the amount of injuries. And injuries is a factor that we've got to account for every single team, but I think Brighton, especially the long-term injuries. I think Solly Marsh, I don't even know if he's played a minute of football this season. If he did, it was probably in August, because I haven't seen him since. Karen Return has been injured for a long period of time. If you think about the fact that they sold Alexis McAllister, I had no idea how good a footballer Alexis McAllister actually was until I watched him week in, week out for Liverpool. The fact that Moises Caicedo ended up leaving as well. And the fact that I said that I think Dahoud and Milner were good additions who could compensate for that. Oh my god, what on earth was I thinking? Obviously, I stand by the fact that I think they're two good players, but to replace the caliber of Caicedo and McAllister, honestly, I watched more of Brighton matches than probably a neutral fan, but not as much as I have for this podcast. And now watching them both individually and Brighton this season, I didn't realise how much of a miss that midfield would have been.
Yeah, there's 2 massive players to replace for Brighton. The way that McAllister, he really used to dictate games for Brighton playing in there. We saw he would play almost every single role in a midfield for Brighton. He would drop in really, really deep to pick up the ball as a six. He would at times carry it forward as a box to box, and he would also be sitting on the edge of the box scoring for them as well, taking free kicks, taking penalties, and he was so good he almost did sort of push Pascal Gross out of position a little bit. He was that good the season that you did ultimately sign him for Liverpool. And Caicedo as well, protecting that back line and letting Brighton play that expansive, free-flowing football has been where they've struggled this season. They have been quite easy to counter Brighton. They do not have any cover in that midfield a lot of the time. We've seen, I can't remember his name, is it Mbuba or Mbemba, the youngster come in to sort of try and play that position, and he's just a little bit too young, a little bit inexperienced, can't read the game quite as well as Caicedo was able to, and it has cost Brighton a lot. And as you said, I think that Europa League football has impacted their season a lot more than I was anticipating. I thought their squad depth was going to be enough, but with the injuries on top of that, it just meant they weren't really able to pick up much momentum in the league. And it's not been an awful season for Brighton. I think that's far too much of an exaggeration. They got out of the group in the Europa League. Being in the Europa League is an exceptional achievement, and an 11th place, very, very safe finish for Brighton is not bad, but it's just looking at Brighton and sometimes how good they could be. And now with De Zerbi going, is this a potential spanner in the works? Is this something where they can build and have a better season next year with a new manager coming in? A lot of question marks, and I think a lot of sort of resetting over the summer that's needed for Brighton.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think his name is Baleba in the middle of the midfield because I think he's still a teenager as well. And I remember him joining and I'm thinking, well, I mean, if Liverpool want Caicedo, maybe we should just get the Brighton replacement. But I'm glad we haven't, just because Liverpool were linked with Lavia at the time as well, two very young defensive midfielders. And I think the fact that ever since that Roma game in the Europa League, I did think to myself, okay, Brighton, this is the game against Roma where you show your stuff. You show us how good you are. And they got beaten 4-0. And I just thought to myself, it's not even just a narrow defeat. It is a demolition, sorry. And I did think to myself that, and then also the links of De Zerbi being linked with the likes of Chelsea and Man United, the rumours coincided together, and I think they just derailed the rest of the season. I think Brighton should have arguably finished a bit higher if it wasn't for that, despite the injuries, which I think is a massive compliment because they have been massively derailed. But then the next team we decided to talk about, and we did these teams in a little bit of a bunch, was Brentford, because we were very optimistic about Brentford despite the fact that they didn't have Ivan Toney, and we actually put them in 10th, and that was unanimous.
Yeah, this was our worst prediction in terms of how many places we were out. 6 positions after they finished 16th, and not a very disappointing season for Brentford, because I think they may have understood the impact that Ivan Toney being out would have on the side. But I think it wasn't even the impact of Ivan Toney. I think just overall Brentford really did struggle this year to get going, and it was a very disappointing season for a side that were similar to Brighton in a similar position, one that we saw them being fairly comfortable in mid-table for a couple of years. Another really well-run club, but they just weren't able to get much momentum going this year. A few good performances, I think, this season, looking at Mbeumo and Wissa, who I think both stepped up fantastically in the absence of Ivan Toney. A lot of defensive struggles this season, though. David Raya moving to Arsenal and Mark Flecken coming in and maybe not being the most comfortable in between the sticks for Brentford, not having, I think, the ability to play those sort of long searching balls that we saw David Raya hitting Ivan Toney, and I think losing both of those players did lose what was a really effective strategy for Brentford last season. So yeah, not a good season for Brentford and not a very good prediction from us either.
No, but we did take into the fact that Ivan Toney wasn't going to be there. So they finished 9th in 22-23. We thought they would drop down to 10th. And even if they dropped down a couple more places, I think that still would have kept me quite happy with our prediction. But the fact that they finished 16th, and for a long period of time, they were in a relegation race. I think they were 17th at the moment in time. I think they never got into the relegation zone, I don't think. But it wasn't great. And I think one player who I always earmarked as being very important for Brentford, one who I've grown to appreciate even more this season, is Ethan Pinnock. And I think he's very underrated as well. I just think that he's the glue in that Brentford defence, and especially losing David Raya to Arsenal and getting in a new goalkeeper, Mark Second, I think him being there for the whole season would have really helped secure that back line, because I think the likes of Collins, I think Ben Mee, and whoever else they have, who I can't think of now from the top of my head, I think they all rotate, but I think Ethan Pinnock is always the one. He's the crucial leader in the back line. He's the most important. If he's fit, he plays. And I think without him, they really, really struggled.
Yeah, as you said, he's been a really, really solid player in that back line for Brentford for a number of years, and it just seemed to be maybe a few too sort of many spanners in Brentford's work this season, and I'm not too sure of them next season. I don't know what to think of how they're going to play, where they are going to finish, and I think a lot of that is maybe going to rely on the transfer window. Does Tony go? Do they bring in a replacement? What happens in other areas of the pitch as well? It does feel like they need a little bit more cover in some areas, so it'd be interesting to see, but they could be another one of those sides, like we say, where they could finish anywhere between sort of 8th and 18th. You honestly have no idea sometimes. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see on that one.
I think Brentford will be fine next season, just because I think they've already signed Ivan Toney's replacement. And for the life of me, I can't remember his name, but I think he's from the Belgian league, and they signed him for I think maybe 30 odd million pounds. And I can't remember his name because it was in January, but whatever his name is, I think he's coming in to be the Ivan Toney replacement, because I think Ivan Toney is definitely gone. But I think what the side have gotten really used to this season is playing without Toney. So when he does leave this summer, which I think will, with 95% confidence in my opinion, I think will happen, I think Brentford will be fine. And fingers crossed that I am fine, because it is now time for the quiz. We're going to take a little bit of a break in between our reacting to our preseason predictions, because I have a Tenable to win.
Yeah, currently a 4-point deficit you're in though, Mev. It is 48 points to myself and 44 to you. That's after 6 rounds of Tenable, and we have got 3 each in this jumbo episode to finish off the season and see who can get the Tenable crown. We've been doing it, so we've had Guess the Player, Guess the Club. We had another 10 episodes of Tenable. It is currently 2-1 to myself in season. So if you can win this final Tenable episode, win this Tenable season, we'll all end on a happy tie. Otherwise, I will be rubbing it in your face that I'm the quiz champion for this season.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll be honest, I wasn't paying too much attention because I've got so many pieces of paper in front of me. Could you tell me what the scores are again, please, mate?
It is 48 points to myself and 44 to you. So a narrow lead, especially with 3 Tenables each.
Yeah, and what we're doing this week, I mean, I wasn't too happy about it, but we discussed before we started recording that we're going to reduce the timer from 5 minutes to 3, just because we don't want this episode going on forever, and we all have our lives to get back to, bank holiday weekend and all that. So I think since I'm leading, I should probably go first and chase, just because if I end up fumbling, then you might end up taking too much of a lead. So I'll go first. Toby, what's my topic?
Okay, so I'm looking for the 10 goalkeepers that have won the Premier League Golden Glove. There are only 10, as the award officially only started in 2004. Okay. But your time starts now.
Okay, 10. Let's go with David De Gea.
David De Gea is tenable. He is number 4, the 4th most recent.
Let's go with this season's David Raya.
David Raya is tenable, number 1.
Let's go with Petr Cech.
Petr Cech is, of course, tenable. He is number 10, 4-time winner.
Okay, can I... 2004 was early this year. Let's go with Alisson Becker. Toby?
Sorry, I think your mic cut out then. I couldn't tell if it cut or if you were just really thinking about your next answer. What was that? Sorry, mate.
No, I asked for Alisson Becker.
Alisson Becker is tenable. He is number 3. He won the award twice.
Let's go for Edison.
Again, I can't tell if that was an answer or you're thinking about it. Edison, he is number 2. 3-time winner of the award. So you got 5 out of 10 so far.
Time?
Good, strong start, and half your time is almost gone.
Okay.
So you're doing really well.
Teams. I'm going to say Edwin van der Sar.
Edwin van der Sar is tenable. He won the award once, and he's 8th on the list.
Okay, can I also please go for Pepe Reina? I don't think you heard that. Pepe Reina?
Pepe Reina is 9th. He is tenable. Sorry, some shocking technical difficulties here.
No, that's fine.
But
could I go for
we're still going.
Courtois?
7 out of 10.
Courtois?
Courtois is another one. He is 5th on the list. 2 to go. You could get a full 10 here. Clean sweep.
What's my time?
You have just under a minute left. All your lives still left.
Can I please go for Kasper Schmeichel from Leicester?
Kasper Schmeichel is not tenable, unfortunately. That's your first life gone.
Okay. Joe Hart?
Joe Hart is tenable. That is number 7. So just number 6 left on the list for the full sweep.
Time.
30 seconds left.
Okay. Think. I haven't got an Arsenal goalkeeper on here. I'm going to say... Oh, which one? Oh, they're all awful. Let's go for Szczesny.
Sorry, mate.
Szczesny.
It's Szczesny. 10 out of 10.
Oh, my God.
10 out of 10. Absolutely smashed it.
See...
Puts you up to 54. A strong start. And now I'm sweating, mate.
Mate, the mic cutting out was not helping me. Just stressing me out because I was like, oh, my God, has he heard me? Do I not? Am I wasting time? It's only 3 minutes. Oh, God. I don't know if you...
Oh, no, you smashed it. Absolutely huge. Yeah, you got them all.
Oh, God. Yeah, okay. I mean, yeah, picking the years that I was alive for really helps because I know my knowledge from when I've been alive. Anything before that, no chance. Right.
Nice. Come on, then. Let's get into it.
I actually have to use my phone for this one, so I've got to use my watch to time you. Okay, so, because I need a photo because there's a lot of options for this one.
Okay,
I
interesting.
am stalling where's photos on my phone. Right. Toby, I would like you to name me 10 players in Arsenal's history who have worn the number 11 shirt. Your time starts now.
The number 11? Blimey. Okay, so I'm pretty sure he's on number 11 at the moment. Is Martinelli?
That is tenable. Yes, he's the most recent and current.
Did Ozil wear number 11? I think he did. Oh, did he? I'm pretty sure he did. Ozil?
Ozil is tenable. He is the third most recent player.
Okay, so someone between Ozil and Martinelli. Interesting. I'm not sure who that is. Must have been someone who left. I can't think. Okay, other number 11s. Oh God, I'm really going to struggle here. Number 11s.
1 minute
Okay,
gone.
so before Ozil, any wingers or attacking midfielders? Oh, I can't even think. Oh, Nasri, I'm pretty sure, wore 11.
Samir Nasri is not tenable, unfortunately.
Or was he 8?
I think he was 8.
Yeah.
Half your time.
Oh, blimey. Eduardo was number 9. Oh, Van Persie was 11, I'm pretty sure, at one point.
Yes, he is tenable.
Maybe.
Sixth most recent.
Okay. Who else have we got? Lundberg, Pires, no, they were. Edu, I think, was 17. Carnu may have been 11 at one point. Let's give it a go. Let's go for Carnu as a random punt.
I'll come back to Carnu as I try and find him for sure.
Okay. I'm also going to go for Liam Brady. I think he was number 7, but he was a left mid back in the day, so he might have been 11.
He is not tenable. You got 30 seconds. And neither was the other one you said. Think about a left back.
What, Kanu?
Not Kano.
Left back.
Brazilian left back.
Oh, Andre Santos.
He is Tenable. And think about a midfielder who is very little.
Cazorla.
No, the other one.
I had no idea.
Oh, that's your time.
No, that's fine. That was a poor effort for me. That was a tough one.
I think.
How many did I get in the end? Four?
Three? Four. You got four. So you got Martinelli, Santos, Ozil, and Robert Van Persie.
Martinelli, Ozil, Santos, and RVP.
Because you were missing Lucas
Who else was on there?
Lucas Torreira.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Then Ozil, Santos, Carlos Vela.
Yeah, I don't think I ever would have said him.
Robert Van Persie. Sylvain Wiltord.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I probably should have got that.
Mark Overmars for 2 years.
Oh, yeah. Should have got that.
Glenn Helder, Ray Parler, Kevin Campbell.
Who? Ray Parler.
And Kevin Campbell. So did Ian Wright for a couple of years.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, you could have got George Graham as
well.
well.
I will just say, I was pretty sure he did, and Liam Brady did wear the 11 for Arsenal.
He did. I found him 73-74 to 76-77. So you will get
nice.
that. And you will get 5.
Just not to
No, that's fine.
Not to try to overrule your list, Mev, but I just have a very vivid memory of him wearing that.
No, that's fine.
Not obviously that I was alive in the 70s, but
I was looking at like 80s and above, so I will give you that, absolutely. Was there anyone else you think you said?
That's 5. No, it's Kanu and Cazorla. They definitely both wouldn't have been.
Okay.
So, yeah, 5 points. That's okay. So, that puts me a point behind you with 2 left, so it could be worse.
Okay, no, could be worse. That could have been a whole lot worse. Okay.
Okay, are you ready for your next one?
Yes.
We'll jump straight into it.
Hit me with it.
Okay, I'm looking for the starting 11 for Liverpool 5, Norwich 4 on the 23rd of January 2016. And your time starts now.
Oh, starting 11. Okay. Mignolet was in goal. Oh my God, so many players came off the bench.
Is that your first answer?
That is not, because you asked for outfield players.
I didn't. I said starting 11.
Starting 11.
I'm being generous.
I will go Mignolet then.
Yep.
Right.
And that is Tenable. That's your first one.
Centre back, I will go for Kolo Touré.
That is your second answer. That's Tenable.
Centre back, left back. I know Jordan Henderson scored a lovely goal with his hips in that game, so I'm going to say Henderson.
That is Tenable 2. 3 so far.
I know Firmino scored in the game, so I'm going to say him.
He did. He scored a brace, and that's your 4th Tenable answer.
I'm pretty sure he would have played somewhere. I'm going to say Philippe Coutinho.
Philippe Coutinho is not Tenable, unfortunately. That's your first life gone.
Oh, God, okay. So this is club for a season. I'm going to say James Milner.
James Milner is, of course, ever present and Tenable. 5 so far.
Oh, my God. Who was our left back? Okay, I'm going to say Alberto Moreno.
Alberto Moreno. He is Tenable. 6 out of 10.
Time?
You are halfway on the dot.
Halfway, okay. I know Lallana came off the bench to score the winner. I think it was off the bench. Oh, Benteke. Stephen Corker. Oh, God. Who are these players? Who was our right back? I'm going to go with Nathaniel Klein.
Nathaniel Klein is Tenable. He was the right back in that game.
Okay, alongside Kolo Touré at centre back, was it Martin Skirtle?
Martin Skirtle is not Tenable, unfortunately. That's another life lost.
Okay, then it might be Mamadou Sakho.
That is not another life lost. That is Tenable. 8 so far. 2 answers left to go.
Okay, midfielders or
and
wingers.
You have about 30 seconds left.
Did Lana start or did he? Okay, I'm going to save Lana right for the end. Who started up? No, Firmino started up front. Let's go with Jordan Ibe.
Jordan Ibe is Tenable. That is a fantastic answer.
Okay.
That gets you 9.
Time?
And you've got about 10 seconds left.
Okay, I'm going to say him because if I don't, I'll hate myself. Adam Lallana.
Adam Lallana was off the bench. He is no longer Tenable.
Benteke.
You've got about 3 seconds
Benteke.
left. Benteke was also coming off the bench as well, so it's not Tenable. But a 9 is very, very solid, mate.
I would
well
take
done.
that. I would take that. Who are the others?
The 2 you were missing were Emre Can
Oh.
and Lucas Lavia. I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was thinking about them because I know that very famously they started in Klopp's first game, but also I didn't know where Milner was playing, and I just wasn't sure.
Oh, yeah. You would assume he would have been in midfield, yeah. I think he was playing right wing.
Yeah, he played right wing before making his move over to the left wing. So I got 9, was it, do you say?
Yeah, 9 out of 10. Very, very
63.
good score, mate.
Okay. You should do better on this one than you did the last one. But I think, it is hard.
Let's hope.
Okay. So, with the Euros coming up, and this potentially being Gareth Southgate's last ever tournament with England, I would like you to name me Gareth Southgate's first England 11 versus the mighty Malta in October of 2016. Your time starts now.
2016, okay. I imagine it's probably going to be Pickford in goal, but I'm not going to say it just yet. I can't think who else it would be. It's too late for Hart. It's probably going to be Pickford. 2016 could be like Jack Butland or something. I'm going to not leave that one. Malta as well. Oh God, if it was a friendly, it could literally be anyone. I imagine it would have been Cole Walker in there. Probably Danny Rose. Or it could have been Shaw, but I wouldn't think so. Who else could be in there? Centre backs. Probably could have been Stones. Don't think it would have been Harry Maguire yet. Eric Dyer probably would have been in there. Okay, let's start putting some answers. Let's go for Carl Walker.
He is Tenable. He was right back.
Nice. Okay, let's go for Danny Rose as well.
He is not Tenable, unfortunately.
Damn. Okay, so it's not Rose. Let's go for Eric Dyer.
He is not Tenable either, unfortunately.
Oh my God. Okay. Right, let's start thinking about midfielders then instead. Henderson it probably should be Henderson. 2016. God, bloody hell. What month was it in 2016?
October.
What? October. That was just after Leicester won the league, so Vardy might be around the squad. Probably Sterling. I don't know if it's too early for Kane either. Sterling was probably in there. Let's go for Sterling.
He is not Tenable.
Mate, what is this team? Let's go for Jordan Henderson.
Jordan Henderson is Tenable.
Okay.
1 minute left. There's still a lot of hangover from Roy Hodgson.
Yeah, it could be like Sturridge. Could be bloody Andy Carroll up front if it's hangover from Roy Hodgson. Jesus.
It's definitely not Andy Carroll.
God, no, I'm really struggling here. Could even be Rooney still in there. I honestly have no idea. Let's go for Sturridge.
He is Tenable.
Okay.
Who are the centre backs, Toby?
Oh, I have no idea. Stones?
He is Tenable.
Probably too early for him. Okay. And Cahill?
He is Tenable. Give me goalkeeper. Just chuck one name at.
Let's go for Jack Butland.
It is not him. It was Joe Hart, and that is your time.
Oh, it was still Joe Hart. Damn. So was that 5?
5.
I think I got there. That's another poor one from me.
Yeah.
Who were the other names on this list?
Joe Hart in goal, Carl Walker, John Stones, Gary Cahill, and Ryan Bertrand make up the back 4. Midfield
Bertrand, yeah.
of Jordan Henderson, Wayne Rooney, and Dele Alli. Theo Walcott off the right.
Ali. I should have gone for Rooney.
Theo Walcott off the right, Jesse Lingard off the left, and Daniel Sturridge up front.
Damn, that's another poor one.
See, I did these.
Struggling now.
I did these based on the fact that I thought we'd have 5 minutes, and you definitely would have got a few more if you had 5 minutes.
I don't think it would have made much difference, honestly, mate.
Do you not?
No, that's fine. There's still one to play for.
It's not really. I feel really bad with my last one now. Because I was going to give you extra time.
Oh, God, what have you done? Are you going to give me extra time?
I was going to give you extra time. Because there are so many names that
What have you done?
Oh, God.
You've stitched me right up, mate. Let's get into yours. See how you do on this one.
Okay.
This is a good one.
I'm
I like
sorry,
this list.
mate.
Okay. So I'm looking for the last 10 goal scorers in a World Cup final, excluding own goals and penalty shootouts.
10.
Your time starts now.
10. Okay. We'll say 2 right off the bat: Mbappe and Messi.
They are both tenable.
Who else scored in that game? How many more goals were in that game? I don't remember. Final before that. Huh? Yeah. What was the World Cup before that? Oh Jesus. Mario Götze.
He is tenable. He's number 8 on the list.
8. Oh God. Oh dear. Just making noises now. I'm not even saying anything. I have no idea. I mean, when it comes to European and international competitions, I'm so glad I've got you, because you're gonna have to carry us through the Euros, honestly. Oh crikey.
Well, judging off my last tenable in the England 11, I wouldn't hold me to that.
Well, we'll see, mate. We'll see. What's my time?
You have had almost half a time.
Mate, who won the last World Cup? Right, before Argentina, it was France. Was it France? I think it was. Yeah, it was France. Every 4 years. Oh God. Every 4 years there's a World Cup. That's great. I'm
not going to give you any clues on this, Mev.
No, because
I'm going to be salty.
You definitely need it for the next one. See, the thing is, because I have no clue, I don't even want to chuck a guess out there, because there are so many players who it could be. And I don't. Oh fuck! Who's won the World Cup?
45 seconds left, give or take.
Oh God! I shouldn't have given you Andre Santos. That's gonna come back to bite me. Anyway, how's your weekend been, mate? Been good? Yeah. My Monday's going terribly.
There's some names still in here. I think you can get, definitely, even as guesses. Or if you think Gertz is 8.
Miroslav Klose.
Who was that, sorry?
Miroslav Klose.
He is not tenable, unfortunately. Top scorer in World Cup history, but not in a final.
Olivier Giroud.
We've got 5 seconds left. Olivier Giroud is not tenable either, and that is about time up.
Wow.
So a 3.
Wow.
Which gives me some hope. Judging by the difficulty of your list, I would assume not.
Thank you, everyone. That was the Full Fellowship podcast. I am done. Toby's going to do solo from now on.
Do you want to hear the names you missed? You might be kicking yourself on some of these.
I probably won't be, but go on.
So you missed one scorer from the most recent World Cup final, which was Di Maria. You then had France v Croatia, which was 5-2, I believe, so there are quite a few in this. Mandzukic and Perisic with the goals for Croatia, and Pogba and Griezmann with goals for France, as well as Mbappe, but he was obviously already mentioned. Before Goetze, the two were Iniesta, got the winner in the Spain-Netherlands World Cup final, and Marco Materazzi got the equaliser for Italy v France in '06. And that's the list.
Wow. Should have done miles better, but God, yeah.
You still might have enough of a lead, mate, to still claim it.
You need 8 to win.
Come on, let's get into this
4 to
impossible
tie.
Tenable then.
I am going to give you an extra minute just because there are 44 correct options available, and I will need time just to scan them and just to let you know if it's Tenable or not. But
Okay.
I would like you
thanks, mate.
to name me any 10 players in the Premier League this season to have scored an own goal. Your time starts now.
Oh my blimey. Okay, so let's think of Arsenal ones to start. Gabriel Magalhaes has definitely scored one against Liverpool.
He is Tenable.
Okay. Are there any other Arsenal own goals? Not that I can think of. Think of goalies as well. We've had some. Has Emi Martinez had another own goal this season? I think he might have done. Let's go for Emi Martinez.
He is Tenable. He scored 2 own goals this season.
Okay. There was one for Arsenal against Newcastle, which was a Newcastle own goal, and it was either Shaw or Botman. I think. Let's go for Shaw.
He is not Tenable.
Oh, do I risk and go for Botman? I'm going to save it. Right, let's think of some more. Are there any howlers? Oh, again, not. Oh, there was one in the Spurs game, wasn't there? Someone at the near post. Arsenal Spurs. Who was it? Was it Ben Davies? Or was it Romero? Oh, God. I can't even think. Or was it Højbjerg? Oh, this is tough. Come on, think. Oh, bloody, I'm really struggling here. This is shocking. Players who have got me minus points in fantasy, are there any?
I know because they've got me loads.
Come on.
You've already said 2 players.
Yeah, I'm going to go for Botman then.
He is Tenable.
Okay, nice. And it's either Højbjerg or Davies, and I can't remember. Let's go Højbjerg.
That is the one that is Tenable.
Let's go for Davies then.
I don't think he is Tenable, but keep going and I'll check.
Who else have I said then?
He's not Tenable. And that was the 2 you said, Botman and Højbjerg.
But you just said they were tenable. You just said Højbjerg wasn't tenable.
No, he was Tenable. He was.
Oh, I didn't mean to say Davies then. Sorry.
No, that's fine. So you've got a minute and 10. 4 for the win.
Come on. Think.
There's a couple of goalkeepers on there.
That I can't think. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Muric had that mistake, but I don't know if it was an own goal or not. Let's go try it. Let's go for Muric.
That is Tenable. That was 150 seconds. 3 to get.
Okay. Come on. Any other goalies? Pickford, Edison, Allison, or Kelleher. I think Kelleher might have had one. Did it come off the post or something? I can't think. Dubravka.
Is that a guess?
Yeah.
It's not Tenable.
I can't think of any more. Disassi?
Disassi is Tenable.
Okay. And let's go... I literally cannot think. Let's go... I'm trying to think of any other teams. I can't think of any teams.
10 seconds. Just give me...
Let's go for Cucurella.
He is Tenable. One more.
Oh my God.
You got 5 seconds.
Robert Sanchez.
I that is your time, but I don't know. Hang on, give me a second. This is for the draw.
Complete random guess.
So there's Cucurella. He was Tenable. I remember writing him down. Is Robert Sanchez Tenable? He is not.
Oh no, who else was on there?
So, Hashioka for Luton scored 2 own goals this season. Mavropanos for West Ham scored.
Oh, he has scored them, yeah.
Mavropanos has scored 2 for West Ham. Anthony Robinson for Fulham got 2. Jack Robinson for Sheffield United got 2. And then there's other players on 1. Audakill for Burnley. Arblaster for Sheffield United. Areola for West Ham. Badiashile. Did you say him? No, you said Disasi. Badiashile was also an own goal.
Oh, I was going to say Badiashile. I was going to say him as well. Oh, no.
Jayden Bogle of Sheffield United. Connor Bradley for Liverpool. Hugo Bueno for Wolves. Tom Kearney for Fulham. Matty Cash for Villa. James Coleman for Everton. Ruben Diaz for Man City. Estepinian for Brighton. Fodringham for Sheffield United. Dean Henderson for Crystal Palace. Kabore for Luton. Kirkes for Bournemouth. Leno for Fulham. Lockyer for Luton. Lisandro Martinez for Man United, Joel Madder for Liverpool, Alex Moreno for Villa, Ashley Young, Adam Webster, Joe Ward, Heung-min Son, Murillo, Christian Romero, Jordan Pickford, Emerson Palmieri, Ben Osborne, Andrew Amadelli, and Dar O'Shea.
Damn. Well, that's it then. That's not enough for me. And Mev, you take this mini season of Quiz for Tenable to make it 2-2 in games overall, and we end the whole season on a draw.
No.
So what a nice, happy result.
No. Next week's episode, the decider. 1 Tenable.
What a final to get a season decider.
1 Tenable each. The winner of that Tenable wins everything.
I reckon we don't do Tenable. I reckon we do guess the club, or whichever one that I won last time. I can't remember what it was, but
hang on.
It was really fun.
Oh yeah. No, I was awful. I'm awful at the quiz in general, mate. Let's be honest. But
no, I agree. Yeah, I think we can't end on a draw.
We can't end on a draw. But to be fair, we have so many more teams that we need to get through. So we need to get back to our preseason predictions.
Yeah, the quiz can wait. But GG Mev for that good Tenable victory there.
Yeah. Well, Andre Santos, man, I'm telling you. Anyway, Tottenham, we ended up putting them in 8th place. You were very pessimistic. You think they should have been a bit lower than they were, which they finished in 8th position under what ended up being, who was it? Antonio Conte, Christian Stellini, and also who was the other one they had? Ryan Mason as well. God, yeah, awful 2022-23 for Tottenham Hotspur. But we were a bit pessimistic, weren't we?
Yeah, I think it was the loss of Kane was the main sort of underline of that point of that. I really thought Spurs were going to struggle. I thought the fact that they finished 8th last season, lost Kane, there's surely no way they're going to be improving that much. But they have been really, really impressive this season and completely proved me wrong. The Postecoglou system that he's brought in has been implemented much quicker than I thought. I thought, and a lot of people thought as well. Some really good signings. I think Udogie coming to that side has been fantastic. Van de Ven, Vicario, Porro, all fit in really, really well. We've seen Son playing as a striker, playing as a left mid. Completely proved me wrong. A really nice fluid attacking output. And I think a 5th place in your first season of what probably would fairly be classified as a rebuild under Postecoglou after losing one of the best strikers in the world, one of the best players in your club's history. I think it's a great season and a great set of building blocks have been put there for Spurs for them to crack on. So yeah, we put them 8th overall. Yeah, so 3 places out, and a good season for Spurs, even if at times it felt like there were still a decent amount of things to work on, if that's fair.
Yeah, I think definitely so. I think there was a lot of players who didn't feel like they fit into a back four. I think Udogie and Parr, we were definitely saying more as wing backs rather than full backs, but they've done incredibly well inverting into midfield, causing teams a lot of havoc this season. Vicario, like you mentioned, set in perfectly well. And I think the forward line has been good at times, especially later on in the season. It's been missing a little bit, but I think injuries haven't helped that either. And the Spurs definitely need a focal point of a number 9 going forward. But, they made the additions of Mono Solomon, who unfortunately got injured. Brennan Johnson came in as well. But at the time, they looked undercooked, and it felt like there were teams better than them. I think maybe considering the teams that we did end up having ahead of them, that was a little bit of a mistake. But I think the sentiment was right in not having them too far up the table. And I think they surprised us. And I think Spurs can be very happy with the season they got, finishing in 5th place.
Yeah, a really solid finish, I think, in the end. And for the next team that we did predict, I think it could probably be said the same, even if at times, and I think the conjecture around the club at the moment, with the manager leaving at the end of the season, that manager being David Moyes and that club being West Ham, we predicted them to finish 11th in the table, and they did finish 9th. It's a strange old season for West Ham. Really good start. Some shaky spells, a lot of question marks over Moyes. A good Europa League performance, only being knocked out by the best club in Europe this season in Bayer Leverkusen. So it's been a strange old season for West Ham, and yeah, 2 places out on our prediction isn't too bad. Isn't too bad at all.
No, mate, I'll absolutely take that, considering that I was very optimistic and I wanted to have West Ham, I think, in about 8th place. You were pessimistic and wanted to have them in about 11th. So we compromised a little bit in the end. And then we ended up going, well, actually, no, we didn't. I compromised completely. And you ended up getting what you wanted with 11th. But I think it was, looking at it on paper, we were saying, like, so Tottenham, Aston Villa, Chelsea, Newcastle, all of them were definitely better than West Ham. And you had to convince me with Aston Villa, which we'll get on to. But yeah, that did happen. But I think about it now, David Moyes is a very steady pair of hands. He's always going to be guiding that club in the right direction. I do agree in terms of the way they play. You can tell they're missing Declan Rice. There is still a Declan Rice-shaped hole in that midfield. But as we've seen with Arsenal, he's basically 2 men in that midfield, and it compensates for when you come up against a side 3v3, because he's just got the legs and the energy to outrun them, and he's also got the ability on the ball as well to hurt them. So I think they compensated well in bringing James Ward-Prowse with his deliveries for set pieces. Edson Alvarez as well. I think when he's been fit, he's been fantastic, a real destroyer. And I think maybe Thomas Suchek has left something to be left desired in that midfield, and maybe one where he looks a little bit vulnerable, especially with no David Moyes. But I think it was the striker department, because of the fact that they let go of Danny Ings and they only had Mikel Antonio. Jared Bowen plays there a little bit, but we were looking at the people behind Antonio, but we're kind of looking at Antonio and it being only him, as they need to invest. They didn't end up investing in the striker department. They let Skamaka go as well. Ended up doing really well, winning the Europa League with Atalanta, but something definitely for West Ham going forward. But at the time we made this prediction, I think I'm very happy with how it turned out.
Yeah, and this summer and going forward, big change with Lopetegui coming in. Just a brief one before we move on. Lopetegui, hit or miss for next season, do you reckon?
Does it have to be so black and white? Cannot just be, I'm not sure. He'll play more attractive football than David Moyes. I don't think it'd be too much more attractive, if I'm being completely honest. And I'm still not 100% sure, just because I think, like I said a couple of weeks ago, I think he left chaos when he left Real Madrid. He left chaos when he left Spain. He left a little bit of chaos, which Gary Neville had done fantastically well when he left Wolves. So I think next season hit, by the time he ends up leaving West Ham, I think it'll be a miss. And I think we won't be looking back thinking, oh my God, West Ham should have kept David Moyes. I think we'll be thinking West Ham missed an opportunity to hire the right manager to take them to the next level. I think Lopetegui could do it, but I don't think he will. Yeah, I'm going to go with that.
Yeah, good shout. But yeah, I don't think it'll be a massive improvement, but maybe slight, but I don't think enough particularly. But we'll see. We'll have to see, and you'll have to see as well by the time our next predictions roll around what we reckon. If there's any movement in the transfer window for them as well, will be a big thing. But yeah, moving on, we just have our top 7 left in terms of predictions. It's gone okay so far, not too bad. 7th place up next for us was Aston Villa. Ultimately, they did get Champions League football, meaning we were 3 positions out, with them being in 4th place. And it's a really strange one, because when we were doing this prediction, we said that last season, them finishing in like 9th place is a really good season for Aston Villa. And we were saying if they can get up to sort of 6th place, that would be incredible. And ultimately, it was just an unbelievable season for them, with Champions League football for Villa next season. Crazy.
Yeah, mate, absolutely mental. And eventually we'll do our end of season awards. And I do think that Aston Villa and Unai Emery as a whole definitely need to be up there, because I remember thinking, and it's kind of classic thinking that I think a lot of people were saying the same thing, but the fact that they had European football is going to be a little bit of a distraction, going to take momentum away from their games in the weekend in the Premier League. But I didn't take into account the fact that Aston Villa had a fantastic squad, had a fantastic manager with amazing European pedigree, and the fact that maybe the squad was able to cope with that European football. I think that's what we missed, and I think that's what everyone missed. And the fact that I even said that I think they're one of the favourites for Conference League, the fact that they got semi-finals, probably a bit disappointed they haven't got themselves to the final, considering how well they did. But just alone in the league, 4th place is fantastic. And I do think that the signings they made were crucial, and they'll have to be crucial again this summer, because they made Tielemans, Torres, and Diaby, and they made a couple more as well. But we were eyeing them as being, these are the perfect signings to take Aston Villa to the next level. They're Champions League quality players, not necessarily had the experience in Champions League, but they're the quality that they need. And the fact that they're going to improve that side with no egos, and going to have played the way Emery wants them to play, especially Torres coming out of the back with that centre back. We were even debating maybe if it's going to be Torres or Mings. Mings obviously very unfortunately picked up the ACL injury on the very first game of the season against Newcastle, which I'm sure is a game not a lot of Villa fans want to talk about in general. But I think the way we talked about them was right, but I just don't think we appreciated maybe as much the squad depth and quality that they did have.
In particular, that Moussa Diaby signing, I think any club in Europe could have signed him and it wouldn't have been shocking. He was absolutely electric at Leverkusen, really, really exciting, such a good dribbler and really clinical as well. And I think the fact he has come in and made a real impact, and he does look like a quality player, but the fact he doesn't even start half the games because of how well Villa are playing, how well other players in that side are playing, like sort of Tielemans, McGinn, Leon Bailey in particular has really stepped up this year again, just shows how strong that squad is and how well they have performed this season, even after they've been hit by a few sort of crucial injuries. Looking at Kamara, who was absolutely superb for them, covering where Douglas Luiz was able to venture forward. His injury hampered them maybe a little bit defensively, but nowhere near as much as I think we would have expected. So, yeah, an amazing season for Villa. And for me, I think Unai Emery is, without a shadow of a doubt, manager of the season. From where he has taken them to where they have finished, it's just been absolutely amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And if he's not number one, he definitely has to be number two. And then we had Aston Villa in 7th. Next up, we were debating between the two, because it is the two teams were Chelsea and Newcastle. And we ended up going for Chelsea in 6th, which was the right decision to make, because that's exactly where they finished. They finished 12th in the 22-23 season. We thought that they would absolutely have a better season. They did, especially the second half of the season, because the first half was very up and down. Looked like they were going to finish in mid-table again, which would have been a horrific season, back-to-back seasons for Chelsea. But Pochettino did turn it around. Ultimately, he's not there anymore, but we'll come back to that in a minute. But I think the season that they had, I think it showed a lot of promise.
Yeah, I think we got the position. It's a strange one, this, because I think we got the position right, and maybe not too much of what we said. I think a lot of what we said was the fact that there's going to be a little bit more maybe stability at the club this season. They've made some strong signings again, but it's sort of another season under the belt where these new signings are being integrated into the side. And I think I made a point of the fact that they've sort of got a full pre-season with a manager and with their squad is going to be a huge thing for them. But it was actually the opposite, because the first half of the season from Chelsea was pretty abysmal again, and it was that second half of the season where they really picked up form. They got that momentum going, carried by Cole Palmer, the Premier League Young Player of the Year, who was sensational all season long, and they were able to get into 6th position through that incredible second half of the season momentum. So, yeah, we were maybe got that second half of the season right, that we thought they were going to do really well. And looking at players like Nkunku, who didn't even feature that much as someone who might stand out. And I don't think anyone could have predicted that it would be Cole Palmer, signed from Manchester City fairly late in the window. And I think after our prediction that he would be the one carrying them forward and ending with over 30 goal contributions in the league, which is absolutely mental. So yeah, it's a funny old season for Chelsea that has ended on a high in terms of getting Europe. Now Pochettino has gone, it just makes you think, what is going on? Why is he being sacked after that amazing turnaround? Clearly things seem to be going better than they were. He's gone, And now it's another manager hunt for one of Europe's big clubs. Lots of talk and lots of reports today, and it does seem that top of that list for Chelsea is Leicester's Maresca. What do you make of that if they do make that appointment? Do you see it as an upgrade, a downgrade, and can he bring a little bit more success to the club?
Make no mistake about it, Maresca is a downgrade from Pochettino. Will he end up being a success at Chelsea? That we'll have to wait and see. However, it's so difficult because I'm just so torn, as you can probably tell, because I really like Pochettino. I don't think he was necessarily the perfect manager for Chelsea. However, he was a good fit for what they needed right now and what they're going to need in the future. So to sack him feels very strange. However, if there was a different opinion about transfer strategy and what they want to do going forward, if maybe he wants to keep some of the homegrown players like the Conor Gallagher or Trevor Chalobah, and the Chelsea owners maybe want to sell him just because of the fact that they've spent a lot of money amortizing players like Mudryk, the likes of players like Casado, Enzo Fernandez on long contracts which they can't sell. They have to sell some of their homegrown players, and I think Pochettino would definitely want to keep Conor Gallagher, maybe Trevor Chalobah and a couple more as well. But I just think Maresca is a definite downgrade on Pochettino. Pochettino's done a fantastic job with Espanyol, Southampton, Tottenham, did okay with PSG for being honest. And to get Chelsea into 6th, everyone expected them to do better, but I think the second half of the season showed that this Chelsea side is capable. One caveat to that I will say is the fact that I think that when you're not playing for anything and you're out of the running anyway, it's very easy to play well. So that you need to keep that in mind. But I think Maresca, he's had 6 months at Parma, didn't do great. Pep Guardiola's number 2, now coming in after getting Leicester promoted. I would slightly question the character of Maresca because it seems like Kieran McKenna has used it to get himself a new contract, the speculation with Chelsea. Maresca feels like he's jumping ship because of the fact that Leicester got promoted. However, they do have financial fair play issues looming over their head. They're likely to get a point deduction. And because of the strength of the Premier League, as we've seen this season, it's going to be very hard for new promoted teams to stay up, even if they are quality. And we do expect them probably to stay up with the likes of Leicester. So I don't think it reflects well on Maresca. It doesn't reflect well on Chelsea. And more than anything, it just feels like Pep Guardiola attacks the fact that Kompany's going to Bayern Munich, Arteta got as long as he did with Arsenal, and Maresca is now getting the Chelsea job. Only Arteta has done a good job so far. Kompany, yes, got Burnley promoted, but he's now got them relegated. So I don't think it's a good move from Chelsea to sack Pochettino in the first place, and I don't think his replacement is any better. Harsh, but that's what I think.
Yeah, it could be a case of maybe too much too soon, too big of a job to sort of jump up and take, especially, like you said, Leicester have got their problems at the moment, but Chelsea certainly aren't out of problems themselves. A lot still to sort out at that club, and it'd be interesting to see if he can do it, if they do end up going for him. So we'll have to wait and see on that. Next in our prediction, though, we had in 5th place was Newcastle. 2 positions out, ultimately finishing 7th place. And another strange one, I think, to judge this from my perspective. And we did question how Champions League football would affect Newcastle this season. Did they have the squad depth? Ultimately, they didn't. A fairly underwhelming Champions League campaign. They did have that amazing win over PSG, but went out in the group stage. Faltering sort of momentum in the league. It felt a bit up and down for Newcastle. Fantastic going forward. Very poor defensively. Hit by injuries. But still 7th place finish, I think, is a good one for them, even if maybe compared to our predictions, a little bit less than what we expected.
Yeah, and the reason why I remember putting Newcastle ahead of Chelsea was because I said that Chelsea midfield looked a little bit lackluster. They only had Conor Gallagher and Enzo Fernandez. Maybe they're going to sign Moises Caicedo. And I thought that Newcastle midfield was stacked. I thought that with Bruno Guimaraes, Joe Linton, and with Tonali joining them, that there's going to be a fantastic midfield 3 with the likes of Joe Willock, Elliot Anderson, and Longstaff behind them. I thought they could really go on and compete with the top boys. And in quotation marks, I said, Tonali is a fantastic signing, end quote. That didn't quite work out, and for obvious reasons off the field, it did seem to put a bit of a dampener on the whole Newcastle season, because every time you think, oh, Newcastle need this type of midfielder, you'd go, okay, they need a midfielder who does this, and this. And then you look at it and say, okay, they need someone like Sandro Tonali, and he just hasn't been available for them. Joe Linton's been injured as well. And ultimately finishing 7th. But when you look at the teams who are ahead of them, they do have more strength in the depth. But Newcastle's starting 11 is really good. And we did speak about Alexander Isak and Wilson, saying between them, they'll probably be fit for the entirety of the season, which it turned out to be. But Alexander Isak was phenomenal this year.
Yeah, an absolutely incredible season for Isak, and he just seems to keep improving. He's still so young as well. I think he's only 24. Hopefully Newcastle can keep hold of him, because there's a lot of reports that Newcastle do need to do a bit of selling this window to try and balance those books, balance that financial fair play, and it's looking like it's either going to be Bruno Guimaraes or Isak that they try and cash in on, get a big cash on, just so they can then in the future go and spend a little bit more on other departments where they may need it. But I think if they were to sell Isak, they'd be absolutely crazy, because he is slowly becoming one of the best strikers in the league. His all-round play is fantastic, and he's shown it again this season, and they would be a lot lower than 7th, I think, without Isak leading the line.
Yeah, absolutely. And we did question at the start how good Eddie Howe was as a manager, because to get Newcastle to 4th was fantastic, but it felt a bit too early, and it felt like it was ahead of where Newcastle should be in their trajectory. So the fact that they ended up getting 7th, and the fact that they were in Europe until Man United won the FA Cup, which we'll come on to. But I do think that Eddie Howe is a good manager. He's a fantastic manager, and he's the right one to take them forward. So those questions that we had back then, I think are definitely put to rest now, because I think 2 consistent finishes, what would have been Europe had it not been for cup competitions, I think is definitely something Newcastle fans can look forward to. And I think it's just a squad depth going forward. And we did have questions about the centre-back as well, but I think very happy with the season they had. And I'm quite happy with us putting them in 5th place. But one team I'm not too happy about, and I don't think anyone got this right in the prediction, was Man United in 8th. Do you want to take this away, Toby? Because I don't really know where to start. We had a lot of hope and expectation, but nothing really we said came to fruition.
Yeah, we ultimately put them in 4th position, thinking they were going to get Champions League football again. If you look at it compared to the last season, they finished 3rd. And I think maybe a lot of that was other teams in the league not performing as you expected. Liverpool were pretty poor at times last season, missed out on Champions League football, gave United the opportunity to be there. There was no Aston Villa in there fighting around. Spurs had dropped off. Chelsea had really dropped off. So United had that opportunity to go and get Champions League football, and they did. But this season, they didn't take advantage of having that Champions League football. A really poor campaign from them, and not much better in the league, particularly ending on 60 points in 8th position. A strange one. Start of the season, I think we said that we'd like to see Jadon Sancho play some more football, someone we really liked watching, and we thought Onana was going to be a great signing, which I think he has been a lot better than people have been saying. I think in the league he's actually been one of the best performing keepers this season and is still a great signing for them. But Sancho certainly hasn't delivered maybe the narrative we thought was going to happen. That's a whole nother story in itself. And I don't know, just a really strange team. The quality in the team I don't think is enough, and that showed. A few question marks over Ten Hag, but I don't think there's really too much more he could do with the squad and the setup at the moment. They did end up winning the FA Cup, which is a fantastic thing, but finishing in 8th position and missing out on Champions League football is a big blow for a club of that size. And yeah, it just feels like maybe the drop off from last season, even at times they weren't amazing last season, is quite away. And I think they've got a lot to do this summer to try and scrape back into that top 4. But I don't think many will be putting them in the top 4 again in their predictions next year.
Never say never, Tobes. Because I will say one thing for certain. I don't think that Erik ten Hag should be sacked, because of the fact that I've seen the method Chelsea and Bayern Munich have been on trying to secure a new manager to replace theirs. So I think Man United just stick with ten Hag for one more year at the very least. And the fact that back when we did this prediction, we were saying Mount and Onana were going to be great signings to progress the style of play. The style of play had been pretty absent so far this season, shown glimpses towards the back end, but as a whole cohesive unit, they've not been great. Yes, they've had injuries to the centre backs, but which we did actually point out. We said that behind Varane and Martinez, there wasn't great depth. Obviously, they went on to sign Johnny Evans on the free transfer, and he's played a lot more minutes than anything anyone expected him to do this year. And also, Willie Kambwala came into the side as well. However, it hasn't quite worked out, and the centre backs, the depth in that position has really hampered them. Varane is now leaving as well, so they probably need two centre backs, you'd argue. Um, at that time, they also had no Amrabat, they had no Kobe Mainoo to come through the side as well, so we didn't know the depth that they had in the midfield. It's just that they couldn't keep anyone fit, and I think injuries have really curtailed what could have been a very promising season for Man United, and I think off the other issues as well, so like the Jadon Sancho as well. But I am quite happy with how Liverpool ended up the season, because I had Man United ahead of Liverpool, but then you convinced me. Well, I'm not sure if it was actually convinced. I think it was, oh, go on, I'll have Liverpool ahead of United. But we ended up putting Liverpool third, and I was very happy with that. And considering we got it absolutely spot on.
Yeah, I think last season just felt more like an anomaly, I think, from Liverpool, as opposed to something that was going to carry on. Them finishing in fifth position, missing out Champions League football. They sort of scraped that almost towards the end. They were really poor last season at times, but I just felt like more like difficulties in form as I think a real change, and I definitely felt like they were going to be back. I wasn't too sure if they were going to be right back in the title race, but I thought they would at least be giving it a good go, and they really did. They were in the title race up until almost the last month, until that game against Palace and the draw against West Ham. So they were in there all season. It was another good season for Liverpool. I think maybe a lot of the question marks that came from us both was the change in midfield. Fabinho and Henderson both being shipped off, as well as obviously Milner having left to go to Brighton, and it just felt like there was going to be too much change in that midfield, an almost completely different midfield three it could have been with Gravenberch, McAllister and Szoboszlai, that it could just completely disrupt Liverpool. But the players they did sign are quality. Szoboszlai, I think, at the start of the season made an incredible impact that did seem to sort of teeter out a little bit. Obviously, he was injured as well at points. McAllister has been exceptional and one of Liverpool's player of the season, if not the player of the season. And it definitely felt like at times Liverpool were back to their best. It unfortunately wasn't. They weren't able to do it for the whole season, and there were a few games that felt like a little bit of a struggle. But a really good season for Liverpool. Correctly predicted them to be in third place, and it's great to have them back in the Champions League next season. I'm sure as a Liverpool fan you'll agree on that.
Yeah, it is fantastic to have them back in the Champions League. I just didn't know at the time that this was going to be Jurgen Klopp's last season. I don't think anyone did. Not even himself, actually. I think he admitted. But I think the fact that I'm very glad that he was here for this season, because, yeah, I mean, at that time we only signed McAllister and Szoboszlai. We still hadn't signed Endo. We needed a defensive midfielder. We bring in with Lavia and Butetić being very similar ages. That was a worry. We still hadn't had the whole Moises Caicedo saga, which was Liverpool bidding for him saying no, him going to Chelsea. That was a complete waste of time. And then also signing Ryan Gravenberch. I mean, losing leadership of Milner and Henderson as well. I was a little bit worried about that, because I think people probably worry about the team and what's going on, but I was worried about the environment that was going to be in the dressing room, because there were questions about Virgil van Dijk's leadership with the Netherlands. Is he the leader that they need? I think that's been proven completely wrong this season. But I do also think that Liverpool, at that time, we were talking about this other play. The left back is going to be tucking in because Trent Alexander-Arnold is going to be inverting. So could Robertson and Tsimikas play in the back three in possession? And we were like, not really. And I did think the front force would be better. Although that Nunes would hit the ground running and be fine after a season. He absolutely did that with the game against Newcastle. But Gakpo hasn't quite hit the ground running. I mean, he's done well in the last 5 or 6 games. Diaz, again, he does everything great up into the final third. And a lot of questions. And I think at the end of the day, third place, I think, is probably exactly where they should have been.
Yes, and that leads us down to the last 2 teams in the league. Who did we predict to win the Premier League? Did we go ballsy and go for Arsenal? Did we go safe and go for Manchester City? We went safe and we were correct. Unfortunately, as an Arsenal fan, it was a bit gutting to have to put City first, but ultimately it paid off. Yeah, we went for Manchester City to win the league and Arsenal to finish just behind in second place.
Yeah, we did really well here, didn't we? We got 1, 2, and 3 absolutely spot on. And I think the 1 and 2 was, even though we probably didn't want to admit it, was a little bit obvious because I remember talking about Man City because we were saying the fact that Bernardo Silva staying was massive. You had a great shout saying Foden playing central could be unreal. Do you want to talk about that? Because we saw it a little bit in preseason. We didn't realize how good he was going to be, how good Man City were going to be. I think 19 goals, 8 assists, and maybe even taking the mantle of Kevin De Bruyne. I mean, he's been phenomenal. And who would have thought it at the beginning of the season that Phil Foden would have been Premier League Player of the Year? I might have said he could be with the shout, but I definitely think he would get it.
Yeah, I remember saying that because I think a lot of Phil Foden, he never has had a consistent run of games for City, like all season, like being one of the first names on the team sheet. He has been rotated through Grealish, through Mahrez for a number of years, and he's never really been able to be a star player for City. He's still so young, so it's completely understandable. But yeah, I just thought if he plays as well as he does when he does make appearances for City like he did last year, if he plays all season long, he's going to be completely unplayable. And with De Bruyne's injury, it just made sense to try and push him in a little bit more. He was playing quite wide right and drifting in, whereas I think this season we've seen him play in that sort of right half space and then drifting centrally, which is normally where Kevin De Bruyne does like to operate. And he has just absolutely taken that opportunity and been exceptional. For me, I agree, player of the season. I think he's got to be been absolutely superb. Does everything attacking wise so well, does everything pressing wise from a forward so well. A superb player and still so young. So yeah, he was also the one for me where I think he could be the difference maker for City this season. We also did touch on Gavardio a little bit, which was a strange one, but we definitely didn't predict him to be the high-flying left-back that he was. We mentioned him sort of coming into left centre-back alongside Ruben Diaz potentially, or being cover when John Stones is there, as someone maybe who can step in and go into that midfield role as a centre-back. But yeah, he's been amazing these last sort of 10 few games playing as a left-back, which has been another big thing, which has helped City go on that crazy run at the end of the season, again, to win the league.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were talking about City being a weaker side than they were last season after they just did the treble. Obviously, it was all very well known. They lost Mahrez, Gundogan and Laporte, and they signed Kovacic and Nunez in midfield, Gavardio and Jeremy Doku. That was it. That was the four signings they brought in. Obviously, on paper, they got weaker than they were the previous year. But we were saying how, obviously, when you win a treble, the only way you're going to have as good a season as you did is to win the treble again. That was it's extremely unlikely and probably wasn't going to happen. So regardless of what you do, you're going to have a worse season. You may as well take the hit and rebuild in one season. And I think that's exactly what Manchester City did. But the fact that they still ended up winning the Premier League, got to the final of the FA Cup, and we still at that time predicted them to finish first, just goes to show the strength of Man City and how good this Pep Guardiola side is and how unflappable they are. And 4 in a row, just incredible. Probably favourites to do 5 next year as well. But I remember asking you about second place Arsenal, and I said to them, if we don't predict Arsenal first this year, what do they have to do to get first? And you said something which I thought was quite interesting. You said that obviously Rice was going to be a great addition. You said that as you can see the side going again and improving under Arteta. But you said that to beat Man City to the title, you just had to wait for Pep Guardiola to leave and for City to drop off. And after this season, I think that's even more poignant now.
Yeah, it felt like last season there were things that we could have done to improve. It felt like that spell we had where we had those 3 draws in a row was something that I think was a complete lack of experience, a lack of game management, and something that I think could have been addressed over the summer and going into the season and improved upon. And I think that certainly has been the case. Our defence has improved tenfold. We've really seen out games when we've needed to, and we've really come out of tough, must-win games with 3 points. And I think this season there wasn't too much more we could do from my perspective anyway. I think we were fantastic, and I just think City were better because they are the best team in the world, and we're just not there yet. And I'm not sure if we'll ever be if City are as good as they were this year. I think next season it depends more on City about, for me, who's going to win it between City and Arsenal. I think if there's any negative changes that we can identify in City, then Arsenal can do it. I just feel like any Arsenal improvements still isn't going to be enough. I don't know. Maybe that's just me sort of being pessimistic, but I think next season we can win the league, and we'll have to see when the predictions roll around again, as I keep saying, what we go for. But it's just annoying, isn't it? It's just annoying. City, very good. Can't really say much more than that.
Yeah, I remember going into the predictions. You said Man City will come top. I said Man City will come top. We decided to go together and say Man City will go top, and they actually finished top as well. It just felt like there was an inevitability. But in fairness, we said that Arsenal, both of us said Arsenal finished second. We decided to go for Arsenal being second, and they finished second as well. So it's definitely Man City and Arsenal for the league title, I think, next year as well. I think that one thing that we touched on, which we didn't get quite to see this season, was during Timber, how well he was going to do, because I think he would have definitely competed with both Zinchenko and Ben White, and potentially even the centre-backs in certain games and certain scenarios. But I think Arsenal will be good and I think they will be better next year. They were 84 points in 22-23, 89 points in 23-24, and I think they will get even better again. Is just whether that's enough to beat Manchester City. And I guess the thing is that we'll be looking ahead to next season is, can Man City go 5 in a row? I mean, God, 5 in a row just sounds demoralising. Maybe the Premier League is the Farmers League.
Yeah, it could be even more than 5 if Guardiola decides to extend his contract. So we'll have to see. But yeah, that was our Premier League predictions. Shall we run through the list and show our total of how many positions we were out? Okay, so in 20th place, we had Luton. We had 19th place of Sheffield United and 18th place of Wolves. 17th, we went for Forest. 16th, we went for Everton. 15th, we went for Fulham. 14th, Burnley. 13th, Bournemouth. 12th, Palace. 11th, West Ham. 10th, Brentford. 9th, Brighton. 8th, Spurs. 7th, Villa. 6th, Chelsea. 5th, Newcastle. 4th, Man United. And a top 3 of Liverpool, Arsenal and City. And I think reading that, it seems like we were a bit off overall, but in terms of counting how many positions we were out, so for example with Luton, we put them in 20th, they did finish 18th, that counts as a score of 2. If you add that up for every team that we predicted, we had a score of 40, which it's difficult to just judge that on its own. So there is the YouTuber Spencer Owen, who does a Premier League prediction every year. This season he scored 48, so we beat him by 8 positions, and his best ever season, he's been doing it for 9 seasons now, was 44. So I think a score of 40 is very respectable for our first ever season prediction, and we will definitely be using that as a benchmark for the seasons going forward to see how well we can predict it.
There we have it. Those were our reactions to our Premier League predictions, which we did okay in, I think pretty well. Let us know in the comments below how well you guys did. Was there anything that you guys got spot on? Was there anything you got absolutely terribly wrong? I'm sure there is both for, I think there's a lot for both. And I think that's it for all the postseason content. We're now going to be looking ahead to the Euros, so make sure you join us. Subscribe to us on YouTube, give us a like, follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thank you everyone for watching, and we will see you next week.